Hi, everyone. Sorry I look horrible. Just got back from New York and it's been a rough week. So hopefully this makes sense. And here we go. So there were so many things that I found interesting about these two chapters and the supplemental readings. First, I was unaware of the role initiatives such as the Morrill Land Grant and the GI Bill had on shaping the American higher education system. I had heard of land grant institutions, but never really looked into the significance. But based on our reading, the Morrill Land Grant was established specifically to encourage Americans to migrate west through the development of institutions that focused on the study of disciplines critical to westward expansion. As far as initiatives by the federal government, the GI Bill, in my opinion, may have been the most significant because it not only impacted who had access to college, it changed the way Americans viewed a college education, which impacted enrollment and ultimately changed everything about colleges and universities. Of course, these weren't the only two initiatives by the federal government that impacted higher education. Through financial aid loans, tax credits, funding for research, and grants, the federal government has and continues its commitment to helping expand the role of higher education and the ability for everyone, regardless of their socioeconomic level, to pursue a degree. As for the states, well, the relationship is a bit more complex, especially as it relates to public institutions. According to McGinnis, states have had a significant and positive impact on higher education. He credits states for making higher education more accessible to the masses and points to things such as multi-campus universities, the broadening of normal schools and teachers' colleges, the establishment of community colleges and technical schools. But unlike the federal government, states are also responsible for oversight of public institutions, which those of us who are in a USG school know only too well through things like the Board of Regents. And this is where things become a bit more complex because, as McGinnis notes, it's a delicate balance between holding institutions accountable to the public and allowing institutions a level of autonomy. As far as how government has helped and hindered higher ed, this is really interesting, especially for me right now at Kennesaw State, and we are going through a lot over here. But ultimately, without the support from and the belief in higher education from the government, both federal and state, I believe that higher education would look much different than it does today. Perhaps it would have remained something only available to wealthy individuals. I don't know, but clearly higher education is a public good, and providing access to people at all levels of the socioeconomic spectrum has been one of the most important and positive ways that government has impacted higher education. From my vantage point, however, I wholeheartedly agree with McGinnis when he says that there is a growing tension between the missions and aspirations of public universities to be globally competitive and, growing tension between the missions and aspirations of public universities to be globally competitive and the imperative of states to ensure access and opportunity for the state's population in a manner that is affordable for both students and the taxpayers. I also wanted to, on another note, I also believe that at the state level, we are at a critical crossroad because politics and we're at a critical crossroad between politics and higher education. You see it here in Georgia, but I've also seen it in other states like Tennessee. I'm not so sure how many of you are familiar with this example, but there was a diversity issue surrounding transgender students at the University of Tennessee, and it rubbed the Tennessee legislature the wrong way. Based on that, the legislature pulled funding for the school's diversity programs, and I have a link to an article about this in my response on the narrative portion. So if you want to take a look at that, it's pretty amazing. And we have seen things like this at the federal level as well. For example, the recent regulations surrounding sexual assaults on campus and how schools are financially penalized for not following proper procedures. However, if you ask campus Title IX officers, legal affairs people, public police departments, and even outside experts, you'll hear various versions of what is and isn't acceptable. And so the government has made it virtually impossible for colleges to follow the rules. And it's very scary because if you don't follow the rules, then you are in danger of getting some significant fines. But in general, I do believe that the government has and continues to be more of a help than a hindrance to the higher education community. Thanks for listening, and I hope this made sense.